habitat.
And I want to emphasize too that we already have real solid science in hand that clearly indicates that if our emissions trajectory continues unabated worldwide for the next century, we're likely to have virtually no coral reefs, tropical coral reefs, for example, pretty much anywhere. They'll just be gone because of the dramatic impacts that the increased acidity will have worldwide. So you know, well, a lot of us won't be around a century from now, but our descendants will be, and it'll be at the very minimum a heck of a shame to have a world that doesn't have those sorts of ecosystems in there. But worse, there will likely be a lot of other effects that completely transform the ocean as we know it.
Did you want to add to that, Tom?
Well, I agree that there's going to be some big changes, and I think you know what a lot of Jeff and I, Jeremy and our project is to really look at those things that are going to happen in Alaskan waters, and you know, looking at the fish and the shellfish. Colleagues of mine working on shellfish, and you know, thinking about in reality over the next few decades how the fish and shellfish are going to respond to these changes, and you know, as new as the oceanographic observations of changes in pH are, really good science on the biological effects of ocean acidification is actually even newer. So, so I think we should be cautious about what we're predicting.
Well, you know, we sort of have this, this sort of Alaskans are number one or America's number one sort of attitude a lot of times, and people are certainly in their own towns. I mean, you want to be number one and you want to think you're different and set apart from everyone, but we're really on spaceship Earth here. There's only so much stuff on this planet. And we seem to be running through it, whether it be rainforests or certainly with our oceans. And we have different treaties with different countries, but what happens to the planet? I mean, the Kyoto Treaty, we have different things that, certainly what was just going on in Copenhagen, trying to get a collective community that's a planet community. I'm not talking political, like New World Order stuff. I'm talking like just how are we all going to take care of this spinning ball that we're all on? And even though you're saying we're doing this in Alaska, we're really, the science, certainly you're going to have to be. You're affected by whatever anybody else is recommending.
Exactly, and so my job is really not to deal with the global carbon cycle, but it's actually to look at the consequences of changes in the global carbon cycle for organisms in Alaska and for the economies that rely on those organisms. Well,
it's the whole Alaska fishermen. I grew up with a lot of them, and they smell different than they look on television. Just put it that way. Being from the halibut capital of the world, Homer, Alaska, I look at how popular things like Deadliest Catch are, and how sexy that whole I'm like, really? They are. I mean, people stand up in line to see them. This is such a sort of wild water cowboy sort of thing that they've got going. And there's that. And then we've got issues that are political, like Pebble Mine. And so you try to appeal to people about what it is about being a fisherman. I grew up set netting, what that was to my life, how much I loved doing that with my family, best time of my life. This isn't what you do, this is who you are sort of thing. And then we've got ASME, we've got all these things going on with the state trying to sell Alaska salmon, the last wild organic food source, and we're doing all of these things. And then we've got Pebble Mine, and we're fighting that and doing this back and forth. And after reading the research for this, we should not be pimping salmon. We should be pimping pteropods.
Yes.
The little tiny, little tiny crabby, snaily things that salmon eat. We should be like, save the pteropods. It should be a bumper sticker. Screw the whales, we need the pteropods.
Definitely, and pteropods do have their charm, so they'll have their day.
Are they cute?
They are.
Are they? What are they?
Oh, they really are. They're like a
fascinating.
little butterfly in the ocean.
Really? Yeah. Oh, I've seen it. Oh, that. Yes, I want all those Alaska girls out there to go get the tramp stamp tattooed on their back of a little pteropod. It'd be really a great political statement, and maybe a fisherman will fall in love with you, or a salmon. So here's these little tiny doohickeys that people don't notice. It's not like they have, derbies to go catch a pteropod. the biggest one, you get a prize. You know, people don't realize just how layered this is, and I want to talk about, we're gonna run to a break, but I want to talk about exactly, this is from the bottom up, literally, of the ocean. And anything with a shell right now is in serious jeopardy, and anything that eats that is in jeopardy, and anything that eats that is in jeopardy, which would mean me, because I like salmon. I already said that. All right, I'm Shannyn Moore. We'll be right back with our panel. Oh gosh. Thank you so much for being down here. And you know, you can come down here too, Bernie's Bungalow, for the taping of More Up North. It's on Thursday nights. And then you would have heard on the break the wonderful stories of the individual times that each one of these scientists here saw their first pteropod. It was really, really precious. Really it was. So thank you all for being here so much. So we were talking about pteropods. They're the cute little, they're just cute. I really can't get over how cute they are. You know, Finding Nemo had nothing on pteropods. They really should have gone smaller. And speaking of, when we were talking earlier, we were talking about all the coral reefs being gone in a certain number, like 100 years, that they would be gone because of the ocean acidification. They can't process to make their little selves. But it's not just the coral, right? It's also the pteropods, which feed the salmon, and then it's the crab that the really haughty fishermen catch, and it's, what else is it? It's lobster. It's those really great guys in Maine. Perfect Storm, remember that? I mean, it's all of these really sort of tasty ocean, hard, crunchy on the outside, soft and yummy on the inside.
And it's not just them. It's those guys and the things they eat, but also what we don't really know very well is that, you know, all aspects of the environment affect all animals. So we don't think of fishes as, you know, their shells being sensitive because they don't have shells, but other aspects, they respond to pretty small changes in temperature and salinity. So we expect that there's going to be some changes in fishes in response to ocean acidification as well. So, you know, fishes and the big crabs, they're potentially affected through two routes, both through the direct effects that they have in response to change in pH, but also the potential removal of certain members of their prey community.
Right.
So there's sort of two ways that the communities are impacted, and we're trying to study both of those right now.
Because that is what we're missing, and Tom and I have a study going on in his lab to look at a specific fish, because we don't have specifics. We have sort of anecdotal theories that we think that, you know, a certain change in the environment is going to cause some change in a species, but we really haven't gone down to that specific species level, and that's what we need to, tied with these observations that we're making in the ocean. We need to be able to say what those observations are going to do to the animals themselves.
And can you really predict that? Because a couple of weeks ago, I don't know when it was, months ago, I guess, a month ago, I don't know, Carol Ann Woody was on. She's a scientist, absolutely dreamy, wonderful, brilliant woman. And she was talking about the change of temperature in rivers, and that we're getting to a critical point where salmon spawn isn't going to stick, and it's not going to be able to do its thing. So we've got ocean acidification. We've got, I mean, why don't I just do this? Why don't I just go buy a great big freezer, catch everything I can, and just put it in there? Because it sounds like, with the conditions of the rivers warming, with the conditions of the oceans changing their pH so much, all of my favorite things are going to go away.
Well, except that probably some of your favorite things will maybe be more abundant after that.
Like
So-
what?
Well,
It
we
better
don't-
be good,
you know.
because the other things that you're telling me about, it's not so good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, we don't know. You know, we tend to assume that every time something changes, that there's a negative effect. But you know, whenever climate changes, species move around. So you know, we don't really know whether, you know, on the off chance that ocean acidification might improve the survival of pollock in the Bering Sea or something like that. So you know, so I think it's important to actually see. We need to look at how the community is going to respond, and be cognizant of that. We don't necessarily should assume that it's always going to be negative, and you know that.
Like what we're
All
going
the
to get,
negative effects,
super
you know,
crabs, which sounds
yeah.
like something you catch in port, not
Right,
out
yeah.
at sea.
You know.
But
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, when you bring up the crabs, I mean,
sorry.
there are species of crab that already live in deep areas of the ocean that have been, the same kinds of lower pH values that are coming closer to shore now. So it's not that no animals can cope with the environments that they're going to see.
Right.
It's
No, it's
just
called-
that
I
some
think it's
animals
called
are better and some
evolution.
are worse.
It's just going to
So-
change.
Like
So
you're-
things are
you're-
going to
word
change,
for it.
and so we don't know how they're going to
Or
change.
if you don't
So that's-
believe in
that's what we need to
evolution,
work
your
on, so.
Jesus bugs, DNA
Right.
line up in a different way
Yeah.
so that you can survive. It's remarkable to me because you're seeing evolution basically. We are seeing species change.
Well, we're seeing a
Probably.
lot of species disappear.